The Battle of the Bastards is one of the most iconic battles in Game of Thrones, both for its cinematic intensity and for the high stakes involved in reclaiming Winterfell. It is fought between Jon Snow, leading a coalition of northern loyalists and free folk, and Ramsay Bolton, the sadistic ruler of Winterfell. At its heart, the battle is about liberating the North from Bolton tyranny and restoring Stark leadership. The context is critical. Ramsay Bolton seized power after the infamous Red Wedding, with his father Roose Bolton appointed Warden of the North. Ramsay's cruelty, however, alienates many northern houses, and when Sansa Stark escapes his clutches and reunites with Jon Snow at Castle Black, the Starks begin to rally support. Sansa insists that Winterfell must be reclaimed, not only for family honor, but also to secure northern loyalty against larger threats to come. Jon, newly resurrected after his murder at the Wall, is reluctant at first but agrees. Their coalition is fragile. They manage to gather support from the free folk under Tormund Giantsbane, House Mormont led by the young Lyanna Mormont, and a handful of minor houses. The force is relatively small compared to Ramsay's army, which includes seasoned Bolton soldiers and traitorous northern houses such as the Umbers and Karstarks. Ramsay's superiority in numbers and his brutal reputation make him confident of victory. Ramsay begins with psychological warfare. He holds Rickon Stark, the youngest Stark sibling, hostage. Before the battle, Ramsay releases Rickon, forcing him to run across the open field toward Jon. As Rickon runs, Ramsay fires arrows at him, deliberately missing at first to torment both Rickon and Jon. Just as Jon charges forward to rescue his brother, Ramsay shoots a final arrow into Rickon's chest, killing him instantly. The act enrages Jon, who recklessly charges alone toward Ramsay's lines. This plays directly into Ramsay's trap. Jon's army is forced to follow him into battle prematurely, throwing aside careful formation. The clash is brutal. Ramsay's men maintain discipline and execute a devastating shield wall maneuver, encircling Jon's outnumbered troops. The encirclement creates a deadly crush, with soldiers pressed together, suffocating, and trampled underfoot. The depiction of this suffocation highlights the chaos of medieval battle, where the weight of bodies alone could kill as effectively as swords. In the thick of the melee, Jon nearly dies, overwhelmed by the press of bodies. The free folk and northern loyalists fight desperately, but they are steadily cut down. Just as defeat seems certain, Sansa Stark's foresight changes the tide. She had secretly secured the support of the Knights of the Vale through Peter Baelish. The heavily armored cavalry arrives at the last possible moment, crashing into Ramsay's lines and scattering his forces. The surviving Boltons retreat into Winterfell, but the Stark coalition pursues. The giant One breaks through the gates, though he is killed in the process. Jon confronts Ramsay inside, deflects his arrows, and finally beats him savagely. Jon spares his life, leaving Ramsay to Sansa, who executes him by releasing his starving hounds upon him. The victory has far-reaching consequences. Winterfell is restored to Stark control, and Jon is declared king in the north by the gathered houses. Sansa, hardened by her experiences, gains newfound political authority. Ramsay's death eliminates one of the most despised figures in the north, but the cost of the battle is immense in lives lost. The Battle of the Bastards demonstrates how numbers, strategy, and psychological tactics interplay with timing and alliances. It also shows how medieval-style warfare could devolve into a suffocating crush as much as a clash of steel. The Battle for the Wall stands out as one of the most strategically complex and emotionally charged clashes in Game of Thrones. It is also unique because the television series dedicates an entire episode to this event alone, highlighting its scale and significance. At its core, the battle pits the dwindling Night's Watch against the vast and varied forces of the Free Folk, also known as the Wildlings, who are attempting to cross into the Seven Kingdoms. The roots of the conflict stretch back centuries. The Wall, an immense barrier of ice stretching across the northern border of Westeros, was built to keep out threats from beyond: the Wildlings, giants, and most ominously, the White Walkers. Over generations, however, the Night's Watch declined in both manpower and prestige. By the time of this battle, the Watch is severely undermanned and under-resourced, with fewer than 1,000 men scattered across various castles along the Wall, most of them stationed at Castle Black. The immediate spark for the battle comes from Mance Rayder, a former member of the Night's Watch who deserted and rose to become the king beyond the wall. Mance has united dozens of wildling clans, creating the largest free folk army in living memory. His aim is not conquest for power but survival. The White Walkers are pushing south, and he knows that only by crossing the wall can his people escape annihilation. For the Night's Watch, however, allowing such a massive migration would mean losing control of the wall and jeopardizing the security of Westeros. Jon Snow becomes a key figure in the lead-up. Having infiltrated the wildlings under orders, he develops complex loyalties, particularly after forming a relationship with Ygritte, a wildling archer. Despite sympathizing with their plight, Jon ultimately returns to Castle Black and warns the Night's Watch of the impending assault. Under the leadership of acting Lord Commander Ser Alliser Thorne and the aged Maester Aemon, the Watch braces for the onslaught, though they know they are vastly outnumbered. Mance Rayder's strategy is to strike from two sides. His main force of giants, mammoths, and thousands of warriors attacks the wall from the north, attempting to break through with sheer power. Meanwhile, a smaller raiding party, including the Thenns and Jon's former companions, scales the wall from the south to attack Castle Black directly, targeting its weakest defenses. The southern assault begins first. A Thenn-led force breaches Castle Black's perimeter, leading to vicious close-quarters combat. Jon takes a leadership role here, rallying the defenders and personally fighting on the ground. Amidst the chaos, Ygritte is killed, and Jon is left devastated even as he continues leading the defense. Eventually, the Watch manages to repel the attack, but not without heavy losses. At the wall's northern face, the wildlings press their attack with giants and mammoths attempting to smash open the massive gate. The defenders use every tool at their disposal: oil fires, arrows, and a massive scythe that swings down from the wall to cut climbers loose. Despite the ferocity of the assault, the wall holds. Still, the Watch is pushed to its limit, and total defeat seems inevitable. Relief comes unexpectedly. Stannis Baratheon, informed of the wildling threat by Jon and guided by Melisandre's visions, sails north, lands at Eastwatch by the sea, and marches his forces to Castle Black. His disciplined southern army smashes into Mance Rayder's scattered host, routing them and capturing Mance. With this intervention, the Night's Watch secures victory. The aftermath is bittersweet. The Watch remains critically depleted, its numbers further reduced. Politically, Stannis attempts to use the situation to strengthen his claim to the throne, offering Jon Snow legitimacy and the title of Lord of Winterfell in exchange for allegiance. Jon refuses, remaining loyal to the Watch, though his leadership during the battle wins him respect and sets the stage for his election as Lord Commander. Meanwhile, the fate of the captured wildlings becomes a major point of contention, symbolizing the larger struggle to unite Westeros against the growing threat of the White Walkers. The battle for the Wall illustrates both the physical might of the wall as a fortification and the precarious state of its defenders, who must rely not only on courage, but on timely intervention to survive. The Battle of Winterfell is one of the largest and most anticipated conflicts in the series, as it represents the direct confrontation between the living and the dead. It is fought at Winterfell, where the combined forces of Westeros prepare to resist the Night King and his army of White Walkers and Whites. The stakes could not be higher, since the outcome determines the survival of humanity. The battle begins after the wall is breached at Eastwatch by the sea. The Night King, riding the resurrected dragon Viserion, leads his vast army south toward Winterfell. In response, Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen unite their forces. The defenders of Winterfell include the Unsullied, the Dothraki, the Knights of the Vale, the Free Folk, the remnants of the Night's Watch, and the northern houses loyal to House Stark. The plan is to lure the Night King into exposing himself by targeting Bran Stark, the three-eyed raven, who carries the memory of the world. Bran waits in the Godswood under protection, serving as bait in hopes that killing the Night King will destroy the entire undead army at once. The initial phase of the battle is ominous. The Dothraki cavalry, supported by flaming aurochs lit by Melisandre, charge into the darkness to meet the approaching horde. Within moments, their lights are extinguished, signaling their annihilation. This demonstrates both the overwhelming size of the undead host and the futility of conventional charges against it. The failure of this first strike immediately places the defenders on the defensive. The Whites crash into the fortifications outside Winterfell. The Unsullied form disciplined lines to slow their advance, but the sheer numbers of the undead push them back. Fire trenches are lit to create temporary barriers, but the Whites pile their own bodies into the flames, allowing the horde to cross. Overhead, Jon and Daenerys attempt to use their dragons, Drogon and Rhaegal, to burn large swaths of the army, but the Night King counters by conjuring a snowstorm. The blizzard blinds the skies, making coordinated aerial attacks nearly impossible. As the dead breach Winterfell's defenses, fighting spills into the courtyards and walls. The Unsullied and Freefolk are overwhelmed. Inside the crypts, which had been assumed safe, the buried dead rise when the Night King exerts his power, attacking civilians and non-combatants. Chaos spreads throughout the castle. Key moments unfold simultaneously. Jon attempts to reach the Night King in open battle, but is intercepted when the Night King raises thousands of fallen soldiers, instantly replenishing his army and surrounding Jon. Daenerys rescues him with Drogon, but is quickly forced back into the air under heavy attack from swarming Whites. Theon Greyjoy, defending Bran in the Godswood, fights with bravery, but is ultimately cut down by the Night King. Just as defeat appears certain, Arya Stark intervenes. Using stealth, she reaches the Godswood and leaps at the Night King. Though he catches her mid-air, she manages to stab him with a Valyrian steel dagger. The Night King shatters into ice, and his army collapses instantly, ending the battle in a single moment. The aftermath is devastating. Winterfell lies in ruins, and thousands are dead, including much of the Dothraki and Unsullied. Though humanity survives, the Night King's sudden defeat raises questions about the significance of the White Walkers and their centuries-long buildup. Politically, however, the survival of the Northern forces ensures they can now turn south to face Cersei Lannister. The Battle of Winterfell demonstrates both the enormity of the undead threat and the vulnerability of even the strongest fortresses. It is remembered as the climax of humanity's fight for survival against extinction. The Battle of the Blackwater unfolds during the War of the Five Kings, and it stands as the first truly large-scale military clash shown in the series. After Robert Baratheon's death, his supposed son, Joffrey Baratheon, claims the Iron Throne. However, many believe Joffrey is the illegitimate product of Cersei Lannister's incest with her brother Jaime. This delegitimizes his rule in the eyes of several rivals. Among them is Stannis Baratheon, Robert's middle brother, who sees himself as the rightful heir by law and bloodline. Determined to seize the throne, Stannis builds a fleet and gathers forces to launch a direct assault on King's Landing. Stannis is a hardened commander, respected for his discipline, but he lacks widespread allies and resources. His cause is buoyed by Melisandre, a priestess who convinces him that he is the prophesied savior Azer Ahai reborn. Inspired by this belief, he presses forward with absolute resolve. His plan is to strike the capital quickly, overwhelm its defenses, and capture the city before his enemies can rally. Defending King's Landing is Tyrion Lannister, acting as Hand of the King. Tyrion recognizes that the city is ill-prepared for a siege. Its defenses are fragile, its leadership fractured, and morale low. Tywin Lannister is absent, leaving Tyrion as the chief strategist. Despite widespread suspicion and contempt from the court, he takes charge, organizing the defenses and devising a plan centered on wildfire. Wildfire is a volatile green substance created by alchemists. It ignites instantly, spreads uncontrollably, and burns even on water. Tyrion arranges to hide large quantities in a single ship, turning it into a floating bomb. He also orders a massive chain constructed across the mouth of the Blackwater Bay, a barrier to trap enemy vessels once they sail in. When Stannis' fleet approaches under the cover of night, they appear confident, believing the Lannisters are unprepared. Tyrion orders the wildfire-laden ships sent forward and ignited. The result is devastating. A massive explosion engulfs much of Stannis' fleet in flames, killing thousands in seconds. Ships are destroyed or trapped against the raised chain, creating chaos and panic. Yet Stannis himself survives and refuses to retreat. He rallies his remaining soldiers and pushes for a direct land assault on the city's gates and walls. The battle on land becomes brutal and chaotic. Stannis' men, though battered, are disciplined and manage to breach portions of the defenses. Inside the city, Tyrion leads from the front. rallying men and even personally fighting at the Mudgate. His leadership prevents a total collapse, but casualties mount and the defenders near exhaustion. At the crucial moment, a fresh allied force arrives. Tywin Lannister and Mace Tyrell march their armies onto the field. With their combined strength, they surround Stannis' troops, crushing the last of his offensive. Stannis is forced into retreat, abandoning the siege. His forces are decimated, his morale broken, and his claim to the throne severely weakened. The victory secures Joffrey's reign temporarily, cements the alliance between Lannisters and Tyrells, and elevates their political dominance. Yet, Tyrion, who masterminded the defense, is left physically scarred and politically sidelined by his family. The Battle of the Blackwater proves that in Westeros, wars are not won solely by numbers, but by cunning, timing, and decisive strategy. Do you agree with the list? Do you want to see part 2 with the rest of the battles? Subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Don't miss our last video where we celebrate the lives of every actor and actress in Game of Thrones that have sadly passed away since the show started.